Alright, welcome back to some more Zero Escape. I have no idea what is up with my green screen. It's been doing this all night, but it's better for it to be flashing than, say, the stream, the program freezing, because I streamed tonight for about 8 hours or so, and no hiccups or anything with the program besides the whole flashing of the screen, so that's good. So I'm hoping I can actually get this chapter done because this is like the third time I've tried doing this. And so I get a little mad at it and I don't want to keep doing it over and over. So yeah. Um let's go.
I I did remember a little.
Really?
Yes,
What did you remember?
my father.
When did your dad when did you remember that? Did it just pop out of nowhere?
Please, don't joke. This is serious.
You know, seriously, Sigma. Sorry. So, you remember who your father was?
Yes,
What about your mom?
I don't seem to have one. I
Oh. So your dad raised you?
well,
Kay stopped for a moment, then calmly folded his hands in front of him.
I was raised in the facility where my father worked.
Also, I'm not going to read this in his voice, or a voice like his.
He was the only person who worked there, which meant he was the only person I saw until I was older. That had been the situation for as long as I could remember, though, so I never thought it odd.
He wouldn't allow me to go near him while he was working, but the only times he wasn't working were the times when he was sleeping. As such, the only communication I had with was with the education software he'd given me. I suppose I was a fairly expressionless child then. We developed body language to communicate with others, and with no one else to communicate with, I suppose it makes sense. Once I learned to read and write, I began to realize that my situation was not normal. Many of my books mentioned a mother as part of a family, and in several, the mother, father, and children would eat meals together and talk to one another. Soon, I found myself longing for a mother of my own, someone who would always be with me, who would scold me if I did something wrong. At night, they would read to me before bedtime. If only I had a mother like that, I thought I would be so happy. So, for the first time in my life, I asked my father for something. He had finished working, and, as usual, was making his way toward his bedroom when I stopped him and asked for mother. He looked at me silently for a long moment before finally responding, "Okay." I remember to this day how happy I was at that moment. A few months later, he called me into his laboratory. It was the first time he'd ever done anything like that. My heart was beating quickly as I stepped inside. Standing next to him was a young woman, and my hopes soared. But when he said her name, or rather, her ID number, they were dashed. He had given me a robot to play a part of the mother. I didn't want a mother that was just a machine who did what a human told her to. When I told my father that, he looked surprised for the first time in my life. Then he frowned, coughed, and admonished me for being a whiner. He'd never scolded me for anything before. At first, I was surprised, then angry. Hot tears streamed down my face. My father ordered the robot to take care of me and shoot us out of his lab. The robot was very convincing, and she smiled and spoke as if she was a real person, but I refused to answer her and locked myself in my room. you can talk to a robot and it will respond. But in the end, you're still talking to a machine, not a person. If that was what I'd wanted, I still had the education software my father had given me. When I ignored the robot as it tried to take care of me, it looked sad. It couldn't really be sad, of course. It was only programmed to look that way. A robot's facade of sadness didn't mean anything to me. After that, I stopped expecting anything from my father. We'd never really spoken to begin with, so it was easy enough for me to make sure we never saw one another. I lived my life as if he didn't even exist. Perhaps it seems strange to you that I continued to live with him, but I never considered leaving. Perhaps in the hidden depths of my heart, I longed for a relationship with my father. Everything changed when I was 18. I left my room one morning to find a woman standing outside of it. She was the first human I'd ever seen, apart from my father, and I was understandably surprised. For a moment, I thought my father had created a new robot, but when I told her that, she laughed and explained that she had come to help my father. As it turned out, she was a very mysterious person. She was much older than I was, but something about the way she behaved was almost girlish. She would tell me stories about the world outside in such a way that I was never sure if she was telling the truth or making up fantastic lies. Ultimately, though, the truth didn't matter. I loved her stories. She wasn't helping my father directly with his research, so I spent most of my days with her. Before long, I discovered she knew my father when he was young. She told me stories of how he'd fallen in love as a younger man, and I began to imagine that the person he'd fallen in love with had been her, and that she was, in fact, secretly my mother. After she settled in with us, our long-established routine began to change drastically. First, we started to eat together. Before then, I had never shared a meal with anyone in 18 years. She scolded me for my table manners, or more accurately, the lack thereof. If I was going to eat with others, she said I would need to be more polite. Having eaten alone for my entire life, manners had never been something I'd even thought about. My father got in trouble too, when he made the mistake of reading through research papers during dinner. The look of surprise and embarrassment on his face made me burst into laughter. I couldn't remember the last time I'd shared a laugh with my father. It might have been the first time, actually. The room we considered our living room changed too. Before, it had just been another room, but she made it look comfortable. After we finished our dinner, I would sit on the sofa and relax with her and my father. Those times were the ones I cherished the most. For a little while, every day, I got the family I've longed for ever since I was a child. At her suggestion, I started to help with my father's research. He specialized in genetic engineering, and I discovered I had an interest in it as well. Time faded away as I lost myself in research. Now that we were working and studying together, my father and I had a great deal to talk about. For the first time in my life, we began to speak with one another like a father and son. Whenever I impressed with him with something I'd learned, I felt a surge of happiness, and it drove me to study even harder. My days felt full, right, and meaningful, but most importantly, I was happy. 4 years passed in the blink of an eye, until one day I happened to overhear my father and the woman speaking in the laboratory. Their tone was serious, so I listened closer, curious to know what they were talking about. That was when I heard her say that she planned to give her life to achieve their goals. It was clear that she wasn't being metaphorical. She would have to die. I was in shock. The research I'd thrown myself into would lead to her death? I asked my father to stop his research immediately. He refused to listen. She agreed with him. She told me that she had been prepared for what she had to do since the day she came to our facility. My father had known about it from the beginning as well. Angry and disappointed, I began to investigate what exactly the research I'd been helping with was working toward. Perhaps, I thought, I could figure a way out to keep her alive. I discovered much more than I bargained for, though. To begin with, I learned that the ultimate success of my father's research would require a good deal of sacrifice. And I also learned that my own existence was just another part of his project. I had been created to function as my father's spare. If he died during the research, I was intended to continue it in his place. I was stunned. I was furious with my father, and with her, and even with the research I'd poured myself into for 4 long years. There was only one thing to do: destroy the facility, and end my father's horrible research, once and for all. I made plans to destroy the main reactor, and with it, the entire facility. But she saw right through me. My father was livid, and locked me in my room until his research was complete. All I could think of was how I might stop him. She did her best to convince me that I'd misunderstood, that everything would be just fine. As much as I wanted to believe her, I remembered in the back of my mind that she had been the one who pushed me to become involved in my father's research. Had that been an earnest desire to give me something to do with my life? Or... Still, I couldn't bring myself to hate her. She had given me a reason to live. Even if she had conspired with my father to mold me into his replacement, the warmth she'd shown me had been real. She made me feel as if I had a real family, and that was something I wouldn't have given up for the world. I pleaded with her to leave, but she quietly shook her head. There was something very special to her, she told me. He had saved her life once, and she felt her death would help repay that favor. She would have liked nothing more than to marry him and live a happy, normal life together, but she couldn't. For his sake, she said, and for the sake of the future she had wanted, she was determined to see my father's research succeed. Oh, I skipped a line. There was someone very special to her. I realized that then, although she was the most important person in my life, there was someone more important than me and hers. She tried to explain that beyond what we could see was a future where no one would have to die, but I refused to listen. What good was a potential future to me? It was what I had now that I wanted. I couldn't stand to think that she would give her life for a man I'd never even seen. So, I shut myself off from the world. Perhaps that is why I lost my memory. Kay let out a deep, tired sigh.
I'm sorry. I lost track of time.
It's okay.
Not having any memories is less than desirable. but it could be argued that regaining them is almost more taxing.
Oops. So you remembered almost everything?
No, the details are still indistinct, especially more recent events.
Huh.
Sigma, I'm sorry, but would it be all right if I laid down for a bit?
What's wrong?
I don't feel very well. It must be because I remembered so much so quickly. My head feels like it's going to explode.
Are you okay?
Yes. I think I just need to rest.
Okay. Take as long as you need. I'll go look for Clover and Tenmuji myself.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Kay lowered himself heavily onto the red sofa in the corner of the room. Well, guess I'd better get moving then. I left the lounge and headed off, but I hadn't gone far before I ran into Phi. What are you doing? You're supposed to be waiting back in the warehouse.
Yeah, I know. I just decided to go check on you guys. I waited a long time and nobody showed up. Judging by your face, you haven't found them either. Damn.
Yeah.
Where's Kay?
He's in the lounge.
You decided to split up?
Well, not quite. Instead of waiting for my answer, she opened the door to the lounge and walked in.
What's up with him?
I guess he's not feeling too well. He said he wanted to rest for a bit.
Is he alright?
I think so. We should leave him alone right now, though. Remember, there's a real person inside that suit. I'm sure he's just tired.
Tired, huh? How are you feeling?
What?
I feel tired just looking at you.
Ugh. That can't be good.
Your face is like a week-old sock.
Oh, come on. Can't you be a little nicer? Really? Well, I guess I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little exhausted. I mean, all of a sudden I wake up trapped in some weird-ass game, and then dead bodies just start turning up. Honestly, I'm amazed I've managed to hold on to my sanity for this long. Just about everything here makes absolutely zero sense. The more I try to figure anything out, the more I feel like my brain's just going to melt and run out of my ears. You know what I'm talking about, right? We managed to figure out who the killer was, but there's still 100 other questions we have no idea about. Where the hell are we? Why are we even here? What's this whole notary game thing for? And what is Zero Senior up to? Hell! How about who is Zero Senior, man? The rabbit said he was one of us, but... Do you think it's Dio?
Who knows?
Besides, we still don't know why Dio killed them. He said he was just ordered to do it, but... And there's more too. What about the old lady? Who's she? What's her deal? Hell, what are any of our deals? I don't know jack crap about anybody here. I don't even know anything about you, Phi.
Are you serious?
I are serious.
You can't honestly suspect me, can you?
No, that's not it.
I'm just like you. I was kidnapped on December 25th and brought here too.
She trailed off. You heard that, right?
Yeah. It came from the hallway.
Let's go have a look.
There's nobody here.
Maybe they got on the elevator?
Let's try hitting the button. If the door doesn't open immediately, then we'll know the elevator's downstairs.
Well, I think that answers our question already.
Thought so.
Let's go. Which way? Where do you think they went?
Let's just head for the green door.
Why?
Because the treatment center's there. That's where Dio and Quark are.
So?
You aren't worried? I just want to make sure they're safe.
They're fine. Tenmyoji or Clover probably made that noise. Well, maybe both of them. But I don't think they'd hurt Quark or Dio.
Are you sure?
Huh?
Dio admitted to killing the old woman, but he still insists that he didn't kill Alice or Luna. What if he's telling the truth?
Are you serious? You gonna believe him?
Doesn't matter. I just want to know if they're safe. No harm in being careful.
Alright, fine. Alright, going to the treatment center. Yeah. It's not like anything's gonna be wrong. We headed to the first pod. I cracked open the top and lifted it back. See? Quark's okay. There was Quark. Just sound asleep. Everything's fine. See?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Although... Dio is being awfully quiet.
I was probably getting worried for nothing. How about Dio?
Let's open his. Knock knock, Dio, are you still in there? Hello? You need some, you need some air, Dio? I'm not giving you the freaking, I'm not giving you CPR and mouth to mouth. Screw that. Why you do it? What the hell?
Check his pulse.
It was pointless to check his pulse. He was obviously dead, but I did it anyway. Yeah, he's dead. No, what gave you the idea? The whole thing? I don't think.
Look.
See? Even the screen says dead. But who put the oxygen level to 0?
The oxygen level for his pod says 0%.
Who put that on 0%? Then that means he asphyxiated? I don't know how to say that word, and don't correct me. But why?
Someone must have tampered with the pod and lowered the oxygen levels.
Who?
Look, we should go tell Kay about this. Come on, let's go.
Without waiting for me to follow, Vi turned and ran off. I took a deep breath and followed.